Welcome to Conversations in Science, hosted by the Buffalo Museum of Science. My name is Gabrielle Graham, and I am the Community Partnerships and Adult Programs Manager here. Originally, these programs were offered in person at the Buffalo Museum of Science, but we are very glad to continue them on in this virtual space. We thank RP Oak Hill Building Company for their presenting sponsorship of Conversations in Science. It's the support of our sponsors, donors, and our members that allows us to continue on in the programming that we're able to offer you today. This edition of Conversations in Science is part of a grant that we are working on, and that grant is something that we're using to talk about the history. Actually, let me just switch my controls here a little bit because I think I'm getting a lot of ping back. So this, and I'm going to cut that out of the YouTube recording. Haha. So this edition of Conversations in Science is about the history of the museum, its physical place in the community, and its relationship to the Kensington Expressway. We have this new project in the works, which we wanted to share with you all today. And with that, we'll just start through our slides. So again, my name is Gabrielle Graham. I'm the Community Partnerships and Adult Programs Manager at the Buffalo Museum of Science. I am part of the Learning and Interpretation Department. I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida, and I moved to Buffalo from Florida 4 years ago. Why? Because I had never experienced winter properly before. So, so far so good. I've really been enjoying it. My background is in the history and philosophy of science, and I'm going to be your main facilitator. So the Conversations in Science program is something that I'm usually just the host for, and then we have guest speakers come. So it's a little bit weird to be on the opposite side of this.
My name is Casey Page. I'm the collections manager here at the museum. I've worked here since about 2011, but before that I had multiple internships through college that I did here. I've lived in Buffalo most of my life, so I've experienced the Buffalo winters probably for too long. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat box for you guys. I'm going to be keeping an eye on your screens if you raise your hand, if you have any questions. We'll keep an eye out, ask questions while you want to, but do be aware that after the presentation, we've left some time for Q&A and open conversation. So if you want to participate, feel free. And thank you for being here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Casey. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
So this grant that we've received is called the Building Capacity, Creating Sustainability, and Growing Accessibility Grant, and it's part of the IMLS CARES. So this was a way for museum staff to really reconnect with the community through virtual programs. So in this 2-year program, we're identifying something that we can virtually deliver to audiences. So Casey and I are pleased because this is our capstone project for year 1. And then in year 2, we'll further hone our skills and get a little bit better at using the technology that they've presented to us. We've got a fancy iPad that we've used for capturing some images. And we have a vlogging kit that we hope to use in our next presentation as well. So the goals of our current grant are to share our collections in a new way. And today those collections are going to be the photographs from our archives. And from those photographs, we wanted to develop the story of really what how the museum moved throughout Buffalo. It's really been in a few different geographic locations in the city, and what has changed around the museum. By using the virtual format, we're able to reach people that are maybe not comfortable coming into the museum. Maybe there are people who are immunocompromised or really just uncomfortable at going out into public spaces as we continue through the pandemic, and that's perfectly acceptable. We are using these also, I've learned how to use the live transcription tool as part of this grant. And so you'll see that the live transcript is running at the bottom of the video as well. And really, we wanted to use this as a way to begin new conversations. So the ways that we had been interacting really as a society previously, we can find new and better ways to really bridge gaps, not only geographically, but really to share information in new ways. So this is the official start of the content that we've been looking into. A little bit of backstory about the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences. So the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences is the governing body that governs both the Buffalo Museum of Science and Tift Nature Preserve. And the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences was founded in 1861. It originally had been part of the Young Men's Association, which was founded in 1836. And then there was a Natural History Committee. And it went through several different names. We had been the Buffalo Natural Science Society. We had been the Lyceum. There was a short period of time where we were really formed by some people in their teens, and they were amateur scientists, and they wanted to have a natural sciences committee. And that was a lot of how the collective had come together in the 1880s. The Young Men's Association eventually became the Buffalo Public Library. And from the Young Men's Association, we have not only the Buffalo Public Library, but the Buffalo Museum of Science, the Buffalo History Museum, and the Albright Knox Gallery. These are all offshoots of what began in 1836 with the Young Men's Association. So the culturals here in Buffalo, the cultural institutions here in Buffalo have a very closely knit shared past. And that's really unique. In the city where I'm from in Florida, our cultural institutions don't have that same kind of origin point. So I think that's something that should really be celebrated here in our city. So this is the first of our archival images, and this is actually Lafayette Square. This is the same place that the current public library stands, but it doesn't look like the library that we see today. This building was completed in 1886, and it was developed by the Young Men's Association. The goal was to have a permanent home for the library, for the Natural Sciences Society, for the History Society, and for the Fine Arts Society. In this image, we can see not only the beautiful architecture of this purpose-built building, but also looking, so this picture was taken in 1900. So this is 120 years ago, which is very exciting to see. And just a few things that Casey and I really enjoyed seeing in these images. You can see the change of cars. So this one is a little bit rounded. We also at the same time have horse-drawn carts here. And then over here, you can see something that looks a lot closer to a Model T, one of the earlier cars of the late 1800s. So in this, I mean, today you can go and still see the square, like, so some aspects of the square are still in existence. The Hotel Lafayette here is just gorgeous architecture. And so around the 1900s, there was this booming development in Buffalo where there was a lot of funding and financing available for erecting large buildings for the public to use. So in our next slide, and at any point, if you want to see something a little bit closer, you can stop us, but we'll just go on right through. So this is the Buffalo Library and Art Building was the original name. And so this is the part that was right out at the front onto Lafayette Square. And on the entrance floor, we had the library. Down in the basement were where we had the rooms of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences. And then the building was also shared by the Fine Arts Academy, which later went on to become the Albright Knox Art Gallery, and the Historical Society, which is Buffalo's History Museum. So you can see all four of us were very, very tightly knit in this building. And so we were there for, let's see, this was the home for the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences for about just under 40 years, or maybe just over 30 years, depending on which way you cut that with the math. The rooms that were used by the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences were set up for display and education for the children of Buffalo. And so in this picture here, this is from, Casey, can you read that number off? Because I've got a toolbar over the top of it. What is the date on this image?
A display at the library circa 1900.
Circa 1900. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
So here you can see we've got a very familiar sight, noses pressed tight against the glass, something that we still see in the museum in its present day.
All over in every exhibit. Yeah, I love the handprints and the nose prints.
We see a lot, and we love curious faces coming up to find out what they can learn about the world around them.
Sometimes you just need a closer look.
You just need to get a little bit closer, and that's kind of when the glass is there. I've often bumped into the glass in museums as I was trying to get a closer look, so don't feel bad if that's happened to you. I think it happens to the best of us. The other collections that are here in the room, so here we have some mounts with birds in a naturalistic setting. We also have pieces of our conchology collection, which is one of the oldest pieces that we have. Oh, I'm sorry, these are not from conchology. These are parts of the anthropology collection. And then on the back wall here, we have really an encyclopedic display of the birds of New York State. So you can see there's a little sign up here that says Birds of New York State. And this had been the tradition of display. And this isn't how we have our museum set up today, but it had really been to have multiple species immediately next to each other so that you can compare the differences across them. So it would be like turning the pages of nature, but set up with the specimens themselves. So a lot of taxidermied mounts, these ones that are set in naturalistic poses. And then there's a difference between these and kind of what you would see in our behind the scenes tour, where we have more of our research prepared specimens. Some of the neat features back here also, you can see the butterflies in cases on the back wall. And what I assume is a purposefully hung wasp's nest. So I don't think that this was something that was coming in by accident. I think this is something that had been fumigated and put up for display. This is another section. So we had a lot, and we still do have a huge ornithology collection.
Very large.
Very, very large. So in this collection, we have both the taxidermied mounts here, as well as these complex, really Victorian style presentations where the birds are mounted on a naturalistic looking display. So it looks as if they're all flitting around, eating berries or preening. And this was very much of the style of the 1900s. And as we got farther on, and there's more professionalization to the museum field, this kind of fell away a little bit. And so at this time still, remember that the people who are in charge of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences are a lot of amateurs or people that had professional occupations that were outside of the museum field. So they may be judges, or they may be lawyers, something that allowed them the finances and the leisure time to take long vacations or collecting trips to different places around the country and around the world to bring back specimens that they would then add into the collections of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences. So when we got our very first building that was all our own, the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences erected a small building on Elmwood Avenue, just south of the not yet completed Albright Knox Gallery. And that was in 1920. The gallery was completed, I think, a couple of years after that, maybe the following year. But also this building is much smaller than the Albright Knox Gallery, so it's no wonder that it got finished first. After the museum was in here for about 8 years, it did expand and then turned ownership over to the Albright Knox Gallery. And they used it for education classes as well. And it has been expanded a couple of times and now is Clifton Hall. And so when you drive down Elmwood, this is the same building that used to be where the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences had its rooms. And from this period, unfortunately, we really don't have a lot of images. And so this is one of the areas that we would love to have more visuals than we currently do, but we have a long tradition of providing educational classes for the youth of Buffalo, even for adults of Buffalo. I mean, this program itself is a continuing bit of education for the adults and the young at heart here in the city of Buffalo and really beyond as well. I wonder if is anyone not from Buffalo in this? That would be interesting to know. If you can let us know where you're from in the chat, and Casey will call out if we've got mainly Buffalonians or if we have people that are interested from abroad.
Yes, please do. I'd be interested. I know I've done a lot of these places where they're asking if you come from other places, and I'm always fascinated to see how everybody found out about this. We have people from Michigan, Upland, California. I think we have a Georgia one, it looks like. Joe Butch was born in Buffalo.
Nice, longtime Buffalonian. So yeah, that's awesome.
Portland, Oregon.
We this is part of our grant too, to be able to provide these virtual programs to people that aren't able to travel to the museum. So we're able to share this information virtually and then to have it posted online after the fact.
We also have Seattle and Maryland. Wow, I was not expecting this.
I think this is one of the biggest spreads that we've had for conversations in science.
That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
So eventually, we came to be in our present location here on Humboldt Park. So the city of Buffalo had a referendum for everyone to vote on. So here we've got our flyer, and it said, the city of Buffalo, with your consent, will build a natural science museum in Humboldt Park to house the collections of the Buffalo Society of Natural Science for Buffalo's children. So vote yes on natural science building referendum. Question number 7.
Speaking of children, I got one of the messages said that there's a teacher has her 5th grade class here.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, welcome 5th grade class. This is fantastic. We're very glad to have you here. So for the children of Buffalo, for those in 5th grade and 3rd grade and, K through 12, we're here to provide information. And it's great that in the 1920s, we were building a building for it. And in the 2020s, we're putting it all online. I think that is an awesome story arc for the evolution and development of what we've been able to do with our resources.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see that as the institution in Buffalo, that we can reach other places. It's, we hope to make our collections like this more available in the future. So again, thank you for being here and sharing.
So it was in 1922 that we had the New York state law passed amending our city's charter for a building for the use and occupation of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences in Humboldt Park. Currently today, the museum is located on Martin Luther King Park, but it is physically the same land. It was officially opened to the public on January 19th of 1929, and then the Kellogg Observatory was open the year after. So our original charge for operation was our obligation to serve the public, both in providing exhibits for the education and entertainment of the public, and in maintaining its educational programs for public schools. So not only are we able to provide our educational program for a class of 5th graders, which is just thrilling. I mean, I didn't expect that tonight. It really makes me full of joy. But that we're here not just for education, but really for entertainment as well, for the small discoveries of seeing what's around the corner or what's in that next case. It doesn't all have to be learning. Some of it can just be like fun discovery. And this image that we have here is one of the original signs for visiting the Science Museum. I don't know if anyone is, I mean, if a class of 5th graders, you're not old enough to remember these signs being up, but I wonder if anyone else on the call remembers seeing these around. They had been different colors, and some of them are still lingering. So this is an overview of Humboldt Park before the Museum of Science building was built. So if you're familiar with Buffalo, which some of you are not, this is the east side of Buffalo, and we're looking from, let me get my directions right. I get my lefts and my rights wrong. I'm better with my norths and my south, but I still have them written down. So this is the west side here, and we are looking towards the east. For those of you that are familiar with Buffalo, this is Humboldt Park coming off to the left-hand side here. This is Humboldt Parkway. So Humboldt Parkway feeding into Humboldt Park. This is Best Street, which is still in popular use today. And then this cross-cutting street is Genesee Street. And so the Science Museum would end up occupying this spot right over here. And really what we wanted to draw attention to was the number of trees that are around here. We still have a fair number of trees along in the park that we're situated on, but also paying close attention to this line here. So this road, which is now just past the edge of the museum's parking, this road is the part that gets disturbed as we get into the construction of the Kensington Expressway. And here is the view after the building. So instead of looking towards the east, now we are looking towards the north. So this is Humboldt Parkway. It had been down on the corner over here. So this is Humboldt Parkway extending to the northern direction. This is Humboldt Park just behind to the south of the museum. On the east side of the museum, we have tree-lined road. This kind of area here still exists. There's kind of a meadowland. And funny enough, the other week there was a deer that was in that meadowland. So it still is an urban refuge for some wildlife as they go traveling through. But here, the museum was very purposefully situated at the end of the Humboldt Parkway. And you can see that there's this decorative capstone at the end of the parkway, and then right up into the museum steps. And we can see that this is after 1930, because we've got the completed observatory, the Kellogg Observatory, on the roof of the building here. And again, you can see that you can see my cursor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Just checking. I was like, oh, that would be interesting if no one could see that. Really ineffective. So along the side here, you can see the trees extend from the parkway, really naturally flowing into Humboldt Park. And so we were very much purposefully situated at the end of the parkway and in the park itself. A few of the other exciting images that we have come across are a lot from the construction phase. So digging the foundations of the basement. This is 1925, 1926. And we have a few of these visuals. what we know from our archives is that most of the construction pictures were taken by a Martin G. Schneckenberger, and that is the name associated with a lot of these kind of process pictures that you'll see. And just small things, you know, the museum people like to geek out over small things. I like to see the edges of the contact sheet that these were printed on. You get the small ephemera that are on the edge here, and really just being able to look in. And the longer you look at these images, the more you can see people moving around. So you can see there are some folks down here that are bringing up the reinforcement walls. There are people that are laying the center foundations here. I have a feeling that might be for our elevator. No promises though. The rigging here, we've got a cement mixer, and then all of these pipes along the back would be for plumbing and sewage. Here we've got a few more process pictures. We've got the bricks stacked up here. And really at this point, I don't know how much I should just be quiet and let you look, because these images are just so gorgeous. And to see the shape of the museum rising up, the stone that's been used to build the museum is limestone. And in as much as we love fossils, you can find fossils in the walls of the museum. Please don't take them out, leave them there. They're structural, but in the limestone that has been used to build the museum, you can see tiny shells and other things. So the next time that you visit us, take a look either at the very outside of the museum, or when you come up to our second floor, that balcony area has the outside of the original building, and you can take a close look halfway up the walls there. We wanted to draw out a few more details on here. So here we've enlarged some of the people that you can see. And in this, we have the name of the photographer, and we know that the construction company was the Felton Construction Company. But we don't have specific names for the people that are shown in these pictures. And so one of the things that's fascinating about continual archives development is that sometimes you'll share a picture and someone will say, oh, I had a grandfather or an uncle or a long lost cousin, and they said that they built the Science Museum in Buffalo. And we can invite those people in to either take a closer look at the picture, or if they're able to identify it from these parts that we've enlarged like this, sometimes we can get a positive identification, or at least, you know, add to the names of people that might be included in this photograph. Definitely a lot to be discovered still in looking through and matching names to the people that have been captured on camera. So here we've got another side of the building coming up. Definitely not the same machinery that we see. I mean, Buffalo is constantly under construction. We're always got new stuff coming up, other stuff being repaired. One of the things that I love to see in this picture is this spire here. This spire is the spire of the St. Mary of Sorrows Church. And the church is still existing, the building is still existing, but the building was saved by the Cressy family, and they turned it into the King Urban Life Center. And they are one of our dear partners in educational programming. And so it really is meaningful to me as someone that works in educational programming to see what I know to be our dear neighbors. We walk over and do programming once a week over there, and to have them captured in this original building. I know that their building is older than our building, and there are elders and we have to respect them. And it's just so cool to see these aspects come through in the archives. And to recognize that the relationships that we come into are so much longer than just the duration of our own lifetimes, that the communities are built over generations. And so the people that were building the museum at this time, you know, maybe they went to church at St. Mary of Sorrows. Maybe their grandchildren attended some of the programs at the King Life Center. And it's just fascinating to think about the stories that we can uncover through these images and through our kind of shared experience. And again, you know, we try to pull out the details here. And so if there's anyone that knew someone that was with the building company or someone that was a mason during this time, so these people are working on the masonry to lift the heavy, heavy blocks and to cement them into place. We have another shot coming around the side. You can see the windows being built in. And it's just fun to have a shot like this, because this looks like the side of the museum. This looks like the part of the building that we walk into every day. And to see it in its not quite fully formed state is very, very cool. And it snows here in Buffalo. So those of you that are living in Georgia might not be as familiar. This picture, I think, is from March of
1927, I believe.
1927. So March of 1927. And we've got the sandbags here and we've got the snow piling up. And you can even see on the exposure here, the snow falling down. This is part of our front steps. And so this is the part that would be facing Humboldt Parkway. And so just this part for context. This is not a picture in March. This is never what Buffalo looks like in March. But that's just a shot right there of that part being finished up. So what's the connection between parks and museums? You know, why are we talking about the Humboldt Park so much? Why do I keep mentioning Humboldt Parkway? The connection is really in city planning and design. And so the city of Buffalo, and it's kind of great that we have so many people here from outside of Buffalo. The city of Buffalo was designed, had a park system designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. And there were 6 parks and 7 parkways and 8 circles. And this graphic here is showing the original maps. This largest park is called Delaware Park. And then we have Bidwell Parkway coming off here. And then this long connecting branch is Humboldt Parkway. And so Delaware Park is still in pretty much this form. We've got the Forest Lawn Cemetery around the outside. And then we still have Humboldt Park or Martin Luther King Park here. And then the parkways used to connect all the way down here. This is Main Street coming up from the center of the city. This is our center. This is our downtown city hall. And then this is Genesee Street, which we saw in that earlier picture as well, cutting diagonally across the city. And we've got Best Street here. And so it was important to have these green spaces so that someone could walk without leaving the serenity of the natural environment. And Frederick Law Olmsted really was proud of this achievement that he put together, saying that Buffalo was the best planned city in the United States, if not the world. And I think if you talk to some Parisians or people that are living in Florence, they might have some things to say about that. But Frederick Law Olmsted was really the high mark for park design and landscape design. And so those are very, very high comments on city planning of Buffalo. And so what does the parks have to do with museums? All right, so Gabrielle, you've told me about the parks, but I don't understand yet. Get to the point. So parks and museums, these are the museums of Buffalo that we mentioned at the beginning. So we have the Science Museum, that's us, hooray. The History Museum here, and then the Albright Knox Art Gallery. So again, remembering those museums that were part of the Young Men's Association. We had the Public Library, we had the History Society, the Natural Sciences Society, and the Fine Arts Organization. And so each of these museums is positioned along the parkways. And this was purposefully done. So each of the, I'll say, the art museum was the one that was right here. And then the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences, when it had its first tiny own building of its own, was just on the edge of this park as well. And then the History Museum was here. So when we moved to creating a larger building with more space for display and galleries, we wanted to continue along on those parks and to be connected still through the greenways. And so being situated here at the top of Humboldt Park, looking north to Humboldt Parkway, looking towards those connections with the other cultural institutions, looking towards the art museum, to the history museum, to maintain that connection between these organizations that are established for the benefit of all the people of Buffalo. This is something that is not unique to Buffalo. The city of Chicago has also been planned out in a similar fashion. So the Chicago South Park Commission had its parks connected through a kind of protected green space. And these parks each had museums. So Chicago's Grant Park, which is this is a long view of Grant Park at the bottom. And this is the museum campus, which is at the top of Grant Park. So if we go back, this is Riverside, which is up here, and then Grant Park is down here. And so this tradition of having, your art museum, the Adler Planetarium, the Field Museum, which is a natural history museum, the Shed Aquarium, these sound really familiar, having an art museum, having a science museum, all connected by a park. It is a good part of city planning for medium and large size cities. Also the best known of Olmsted parks, but kind of second to the Buffalo Olmsted parks, is this city, you may have heard of it. It's called New York City. It's on the other side of our state. We're on the western part of the state. They're on the far eastern part of our state, kind of down there. And Frederick Law Olmsted also designed Central Park. And so Central Park was set up with views and vistas, but also it has museums that are located along it. So New York City's Central Park is a destination hub for tourists to go to, and there are more than a dozen major museums there. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Guggenheim, the New York Historical Society, which has some really gorgeous open shelving. If you like open shelving for storage, definitely go to the New York Historical Society. You can see all of their chairs. If you like chairs, I like chairs, that's why I mention it. And so all of these are located along a parkway that's connecting them and really allowing people to have that sense of bridging the rejuvenation of the natural environment and then the kind of cultural and intellectual curiosity of going into a museum and discovering new things. So relaxing and restoring are all connected in the parks and museums. I'm just going to take a second. So here we are back to Buffalo, and this is again the north part of the stairs for the museum. And this is the end of the Humboldt Parkway promenade. And this is our original entrance on the north side. And we're just off the park. And you remember those trees continued around the edges. And we just had this very nice area. So this is another view from across the front steps. They're fully completed now, capitals and all. And looking across those steps, you can see that the parkway extended and wrapped around the sides of the building. So this would be Best Street, where we saw on the aerial before. I'm trying to be mindful of the time as well. I know we're at 6:42. So the Kensington Expressway. The Kensington Expressway, we were just looking at this very nice serene picture. And in the late 1950s, it was decided that there needed to be a more expedient way of getting into the city proper from the suburbs, from areas that are farther out of Buffalo. Buffalo is continuing to expand, and more people had automobiles. And so there was increased traffic coming. And this was part of an overall plan to construct highways and expressways around the city to help clear traffic congestion. And the hope was that this would make transportation easier to get into the city of Buffalo. What we found is that there isn't a lot in the museum's records about the process of the installation. We do have some light commentary about disruption of parking, but we do have a lot of images from the digging of the Kensington Expressway. So we wanted to share those with you here. So this is the beginning of the excavation. The Kensington Expressway started to be dug around Peach Street. So that is kind of south of us, kind of south west of the museum, continuing along what is now the path of the Kensington Expressway. And they started moving houses back, and they sunk this down to prevent the noise from being too disruptive, and to allow some surface street access still. So in this picture here, you can see there's a bridge across here. That would be a driving bridge. And then they're starting to put up the retaining walls and really digging about a story and a half. I would say people that drive on the Kensington, my estimates are very bad. So those walls are probably 20 feet tall. I do not know. I am not an engineer for transportation, which is good because my numbers are terrible. So here we have the excavation, and this was the edge of the park that had wrapped around the museum here. So further, the edge of the parkway is just on this side. So this is as if you turned and looked in the other direction, and they're continuing to excavate down into what had been surface level. A lot of the trees had been removed, and they're just beginning to sink because they wanted to have the expressway below grade. So there's quite a lot of earth removal and tree removal in order to install that expressway. Here we've got another view. So this is kind of a little bit farther back. So imagine you're kind of backing up a little bit, and you can see that they've continued to dig in. We've got retaining fences here, and then this is the edge of the park that had been retained. So we still have the kind of Best Street has a bit of the park. And these are just surprising for us to see. We didn't, the museum isn't under obligation to document the events of the digging of an expressway, but we're glad to have these images. And strangely, I don't think that these ones had a photographer associated with them.
Not that I saw.
So here, again, looking at those north steps, this is what it is looking like, and you can see that the grade is dug down here. So here, and this had been that end of the parkway wrapping around to really envelop the museum in Humboldt Park. For comparison, this is what the parkway had looked at before. We had seen this just a couple slides ago. And then, so it looks like a very pedestrian friendly avenue here, some streetlights, a little bit of street parking here. It looked very calm. And then we've got the same tree. You can see, this is another trick of archives. You can see the bend in the tree here. It bends and goes back together. And then this is that same tree. You can see that bend here. They've cut off a few of the branches as part of the construction, just to get things out of the way, to make it easier to operate. And this same bend of the tree, you can match this with the bend of the tree here. So you can, that's another way of confirming that you're looking at the same space. And so this had been very flat, and then you can see here in the comparison that this has been dug below grade. We have a street level, a surface level wraparound just next to the museum, and then past that, it just drops off for the expressway. So this is from our book. Casey's got a copy of it, Society in the Museum. It's on the history of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences and the Buffalo Museum of Science. Construction of the Kensington Expressway, which had been in planning stages for many years, began in 1958. Inevitably, it caused considerable disruption in the operations of the BMS, including means of access, parking, noise, and large amounts of dust. Parking was still a problem when construction was completed in 1962. And so you can imagine when you're coming from a time where you have an entire parkway, and there is street parking for cars up and along the Humboldt Parkway, and then having all of this carved out and the disruption that it caused. So this is our this is a pull from Google Maps imagery, because I wanted to get the angle right. This is kind of a grotesque looking picture, a little bit because of the rendering and a little bit because of the lack of trees. But here they are side by side. What we had previously with the connection of Humboldt Parkway, remembering that connected all the way up to Delaware Park and to the Albright Knox Gallery. It would have provided shade on hot summer days as you were walking. Probably was gorgeous in the winter. We don't have any winter pictures of the parkway, but I imagine that it was a magical looking avenue. And then all of the trees here had been cut out so that they could sink the expressway below grade. And so this really has disconnected the museum physically and a little bit, kind of metaphorically, from the other cultural institutions as they sit on the rest of the parks. We are still on a park, but that connection that had originally been designed by Frederick Law Olmsted has been removed. And so, there's a deep psychology among, loss that we can't really get into on our level. We're not equipped for that. And I know we just have 10 more minutes. We did say that we would leave some time for questions and answers. So this is an aerial that was taken in the 70s of the museum. Looking again, we still have the park here, and then it extends deeper down this way. And then Kensington Expressway is here. And a clipping from our scrapbooks. This is Patrolman Gerald J. State of Michigan Avenue Precinct views a scene that's sharply changed by the carving of the Kensington Expressway across the city. In the background, the Museum of Science overpass carries Northampton Street over the expressway. So this is Northampton Street, which is a street that I use to get to the museum every day. And then here's our museum and the sunken Kensington here. So at that point, we'd love to open it up if anyone would like to share some information or their own memories of the museum. Ooh, sorry, I just noticed. Nope, that's the wrong direction. I was like, oh, wait, is that the King Center? Let's see. No, if I come out the doors here and I walk this way, yes, this is the King Center. So we saw this, the St. Mary of Sorrows Church, in our construction photos, and there's our friends still. So I'm like, hi, friends. Here they are. All right. So yeah, we would love to open up the floor. Casey, do we have any questions coming through on the chat or comments that would
Nothing
like
on
to
the chat, but if you want to unmute and talk to us, or if you want to add something to that chat, please do. We're here to answer your questions or have a conversation.
And also, if you're mulling over questions and you want to email us later on, we do have some contact information here. You can email us at progress@sciencebuff.org, or you can give us a call on the phone. Or if you just want to write us a letter, I like writing letters, you can send something to our mailing address. We've got just 8 more minutes of the program. I mean, this is just fascinating stuff, right? I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever seen some of those images before. A lot of them were really new to me. The level of detail that can come through in a 1930s photograph is really cool too. I mean, just like the clarity of having ground lenses was astonishing. And really what we could do with the iPad to take pictures and enlarge them was a big part of our learning experience for this program too. Before everyone goes, do we have something coming through?
Oh, we have 1021 instead of 1020. Yeah, Kathy clarified our our mailing address.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'll update. I'll put all that in the chat as well, just to make sure. I can't believe we didn't catch that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. We also have a quick survey. If you have some time, just a few minutes, this helps us continually improve on our presentations with our feedback from people. I will stop sharing because I have the address wrong, or I can just go back to the other picture. But we really appreciate the attention that we've gotten today. We're glad to be able to share this with you. Casey and I have been doing this research for quite a while, and it seems like a long time coming to actually get it out into the public. This is, oh, there's a geology stop on the Kensington Expressway, stop 7 of the trip B2 of the current New York State Geological Association field guide. Oh, cool. So what does that mean exactly? Because I am, well, maybe Casey knows, she's more of a geologist than I am, but what does it mean to have a stop on the trip B2?
I'm gonna see if Joe wants to answer this, because I'm not sure how you have a stop on a Kensington, how you stop on a Kensington Expressway. So Joe, if you can.
What we did was this particular trip, we took a geologic tour of Western New York, and along the Kensington Expressway, we pointed out the folds in the Onondaga limestone. And I put stop in quotation markers, really looking through the windows and making some comments. And what these folds are differential compaction under reefs in lower layers of the Onondaga. So I just thought I'd mention that because the digging of the Kensington Expressway exposed some rocks, and we could look at the rocks, and the rocks give us a history. Also in the museum collections department, there's some drill cores that the contractors took when they were building the expressway.
Yeah, Casey and I saw, well, Casey has seen the drill cores and she shared an image with me, and we considered whether or not we should put it in here. We didn't know that there would be such good interest, but that maybe we can pop that into our December conversations in science when we talk about the geology collections.
Oh yeah, we have so many pictures and so much information, and you know, this is, I guess we consider this the beginning of a conversation that we hope to expand in the future, but especially in our archives, there's so much to share and only so much time to share them. But we have quite an extensive photograph collection, and you know, we shared as much as we could for today, but we do have a lot more. And again, if you have any further interest in this, feel free to contact us.
Absolutely. I'll also share, we've got some future programming coming up with the Conversations in Science series. You can stay up to date by checking our website. Our next one is going to be on October 13th. For Latinx-led environmental justice. And then in December, we are going to have one on geology collections. And so if you're enjoying going through the history of the Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences and the Buffalo Museum of Science, we would love to have you join us in December for another look at our collections. We've done past ones about entomology, and that is available on our YouTube channel. So you can look those up. And if you ever forget any of those, you can just go back to your registration email and just email us either at progress@sciencebuff.org, or you can find us directly from our website, which is sciencebuff, SCIENCEBUFF.org. And that way you can find the people that you need to contact for various programs or to ask for more information about any of our collections. So we are officially, well, 2 minutes out, but kind of we wanted to leave this open. We were really interested to hear what people would have to say about the photos that we were able to share. And we're just glad that so many people from so many places joined us, like a whole 5th grade class. That's not unheard of for the museum, but it was not what I expected for this particular program.
I was getting some direct messages earlier when we first started with some really good questions about what's some of the stuff in our collection and, you know, what kind of birds do we still have there and everything. So yeah, thank you for those questions. They're very interesting to read.
That's excellent. And so we have lots of work to do in our collections, and there's always behind the scenes tours, which are exciting to see. I know Casey's got one that's coming up next week. Oh, good question. So did the photos deteriorate with time? Photos can deteriorate with time, but the ones that we have are pretty durable, and they're well preserved with the environmental monitoring that's in our library. So these, the place that Casey and I had been working on in the physical room that we were working in for most of this project is the Buffalo Museum of Science, Buffalo Society of Natural Sciences research library. And that includes the library and the archives. And so it is all monitored with museum standards and pest control, which really Casey could speak a lot more about the environmental conditions of that room, that I just do the explaining parts.
We do maintain a very strict environment in our collection areas, including the archive. We maintain a certain temperature and humidity in there to keep our items well preserved. And when they are stored, we store them in acid-free papers and folders and boxes and stuff like that to make them last longer. And that's why we are able to have this collection and share it with you. Some of these photos are very old. And because of our ability to preserve this part of our history, we can share that with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so like there is acidity in the newspapers. And so when you look at the yellowing that has happened from this piece from the Buffalo Evening News in the 60s, so that was 80 years ago, and would have been, you know, pretty plain gray newsprint, but over time with the addition of an adhesive and just like the pigments that are used in newsprinting have caused this to deteriorate in a way that, say, the photos that we have from around the same time have not. I mean, even from earlier. So yeah, and the importance of acid-free storage.
Just another comment. It seems that at certain times, historic preservation was not a big consideration in terms of where you build and what you do. And then that's like in the 50s and 60s. And then it seems like in the 70s and 80s up to today, the historic preservation is a really big consideration in terms of getting projects approved. So right now, no one would be able to destroy an Olmsted Park, but they did at that time to build the expressway.
Yeah, I think that brings up a very good point of the focus of kind of civic development changes kind of as a pendulum, really. It goes between preservation of items to getting rid of the old in order to bring the new in. And it wasn't until really the 1980s that we began to have a standardized program for protecting historic places in the United States. The National Historic Registry is one instrument that helps preserve historically valuable areas. They can be valuable because of events that occurred in those areas, or they can be valuable because of the architectural design of the places. And I think definitely the Olmsted Parks, if the same development was put up as an opportunity today to build in the Kensington Expressway, it wouldn't pass those fail-safe measures that are in place now for protecting areas.
Well, just a question, is the Buffalo Museum of Science building on the National Register of Historic Places?
That's a great question. I have no idea, but we can get back to you on that.
Or should it?
I can answer that one.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you, Kathy.
The building itself is not on the register, but the park is. So our facade is a supporting structure, but the building itself is not. And David can probably clarify that a little bit more, but it's more about the envelope and not the building.
Would there be
Yeah.
any advantage to the museum to have the building registered?
Well, another interesting fact is that the Buffalo Museum of Science does not own the building. The building is owned by the city of Buffalo, and they are tenants, and we are just tenants. So it would really be up to them. We just have a long-term lease.
Yeah, so we're very officially on public borrowed land. But yeah, so the comment of being a feature in a historic designated place, that is a measure of protection, and it's kind of a more flexible one, because it means if you preserve the look of the building on the outside, then you're not breaking any of the features which are protected, and it allows you to make changes to modernize the inside of the building. And a lot of historic reuse operates under conditions like that, so that you can completely gut the inside of a building while maintaining the exterior. And that way you can do things like green certification or creative reuse. For the inside of the St. Mary of Sorrows Church has been changed in kind of some fundamental ways, with architectural details remaining. And so having the facade on the registry gives us not us, but gives the city of Buffalo a little bit more play for keeping things up to date inside, so that we're able to serve people to the best of our ability. I think maybe we want to have a joint historic preservation meeting. You know, we got to pull in maybe the Historical Society, get the old band back together from the Young Men's Association, get the library, the Historical Society, Albright Knox, and forgetting somebody. I don't know who. Library, us? Oh, just us. Yeah. So, but thank you all very much for coming tonight. We really appreciate you being part of this program and for your feedback and participation. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, and just have a great night. And we look forward to maybe seeing you at a future program to come.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good night.